Hey guys, it's Wednesday, January 29th, 2025, and we've got a lot to talk about in terms of the upcoming winter storms and severe weather that are going to impact a huge portion of the country. Now, these storms are completely different from what we've been dealing with recently. So you remember the last few weeks have been dominated by massive Arctic blasts with bitter cold plunging deep into the south, even bringing snow all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. But this time, the pattern is shifting. Instead of a widespread deep freeze, we're looking at a more traditional winter setup with active storm tracks, heavy snow in some places, and even severe weather at others. And just because this is more normal doesn't mean it won't be impactful. We've got some major storms developing, and over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be tracking multiple systems that could bring blizzards, tornadoes, flash flooding, and extreme cold. So let's break it all down and go over everything you need to know. Right now, we're keeping a close eye on a major feature up in the northern and northeastern United States. There's a powerful jet stream sitting right over this region with incredibly strong winds, several thousand feet up in the atmosphere. This jet is dragging a fresh surge of cold air down from Canada. And while this isn't as extreme as the Arctic outbreak we saw earlier this month, it's still going to be enough to make things very uncomfortable for millions of people across the Northeast and Great Lakes. However, unlike last time, this cold air isn't spreading southward as fast. And that's because we have a closed off upper level low, helping to bring in warmer air from the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific, and even parts of Mexico. So while the Northeast and Midwest are bracing for another round of snow and bitter cold, the South is staying relatively warm. And that's actually going to help set the stage for some severe weather later this week. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Now, let's talk about what's happening in Texas and Louisiana, because this is where things are really going to get interesting. As we move into Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to see a developing storm system that could produce strong to severe thunderstorms, including the potential for tornadoes. Just looking at the latest forecast models, we can see that a deep trough is forming over the western U.S. and as it moves east, it's going to scoop up moisture from the Pacific and the Gulf of Mexico. At the same time, there's a lot of cold air trapped in the core of this low pressure system. And whenever you have warm, moist air colliding with cold, dry air, that's a recipe for severe weather. Now, Wednesday's storms don't look as intense as Thursday's, but that doesn't mean we won't see some strong thunderstorms developing in central and eastern Texas. By Wednesday evening, we could have a line of severe storms producing hail, damaging winds, and even a few isolated tornadoes. But by Thursday afternoon and evening, conditions become much more favorable for tornado development, especially as the system moves into eastern Texas and Louisiana. One of the key ingredients for tornadoes is wind shear, which is the change in wind speed and direction with height. On Thursday, we're going to see strong wind shear in place, which will help storms rotate and potentially produce tornadoes. However, one thing that could keep this from turning into a full-blown outbreak is the lack of convective energy. Basically, the atmosphere isn't going to be as warm and unstable as it would be in spring or summer. That being said, even without extreme instability, the shear alone is strong enough that tornadoes are still a big concern. Meanwhile, up north, New England and the Great Lakes are dealing with what a completely different problem, snow squalls and Arctic air. Today, we're already seeing fast-moving snow showers and intense squalls, and these will continue for several days as the polar jet remains active. Snow squalls are extremely dangerous because they create whiteout conditions in a matter of seconds, making travel very hazardous. If you're driving in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, or New York today, be extra careful because conditions can change rapidly. By the time we get into Wednesday and Thursday, the lake effect snow machine is going to be cranking up, especially on the southeastern sides of the Great Lakes. Some areas could pick up well over a foot of snow over the next few days. And if you're in upstate New York, western Pennsylvania, or parts of Michigan, be prepared for heavy snowfall and dangerous travel conditions. Now, let's shift back to the south because this developing storm system is going to bring more than just severe weather. It's also going to produce heavy rain and flash flooding. From Dallas up into Kentucky and Tennessee, we're expecting torrential downpours. And that means the risk of flooding is very high. If you live in places like Little Rock, Memphis, or Nashville, be prepared for the possibility of flash flooding on Wednesday and Thursday. Further north, as this system moves east, we're also going to see a significant snow event from the Midwest into the Northeast. Cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Buffalo could see several inches of snow, and even parts of New England and Canada could get in on the action. Snow totals are still uncertain, but this storm has the potential to bring widespread accumulating snow to a large portion of the country by the weekend. Just looking ahead to February, things are not slowing down. The latest long-range models show a very active pattern continuing into early February, with cold air locked into the north and warm air dominating the south. That sets up a classic battleground for storms. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see multiple rounds of winter storms and severe weather over the next few weeks. Looking ahead to the coming week, we've got more rounds of snow on the way for the Northeast. Today, we're seeing one round of snow, but another one will move across the Northeast by tomorrow morning, leading to additional snowfall accumulation. By late Wednesday into Thursday, things will calm down a bit, leaving just light snow, and then the storm will start to move out by Thursday. From there, our attention will shift back to the southern plains and the Rockies, where things are going to get a little more interesting. By Wednesday, we're looking at a low risk of severe weather across central and southern Texas, with isolated damaging winds and hail being possible. At the same time, there's going to be heavy rain moving across Oklahoma and Texas, and we'll need to watch for flash flooding, particularly Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Snow will also be impacting areas in the Four Corners region, mostly around Colorado. However, this winter storm has shifted further west over the past couple of days. So it's looking less likely that it will affect the central plains or Midwest directly. Still, I think we're going to see some snow in early to mid-February, but more on that in a bit. By Thursday morning, we're expecting heavy rainfall, thunderstorms, and severe weather to really start ramping up across the southern plains, especially in Texas and Oklahoma. The storms will then move eastward into Arkansas and Louisiana by Thursday afternoon. The focus will shift the risk of severe weather, particularly south of Dallas and Fort Worth. Cities like Houston, Austin, and San Antonio will likely be the area most at risk for severe weather on Thursday. Severe weather could involve all modes, damaging winds, hail, and even a tornado or two. However, it's important to note that the overall risk is on the lower end of the spectrum right now, but it's still something we need to keep an eye on. As Thursday night rolls into Friday morning, the storm is going to grow significantly. It's going to pull warm air from the Gulf of Mexico. So this isn't your typical winter storm. Instead of coming from the north, this storm is coming from the southwest, which means we're going to see mostly rain for much of the United States rather than snow. This is a bit unusual because it's not going to mix in the cold air as we typically see. So it's going to be a warmer storm. However, despite the rain, there will still be some snow possible across the Midwest and the Northeast. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount, maybe a few inches at best. But places like Chicago, Michigan, and northern New England will have a shot at seeing some snow. Again, it's not expected to be much, but snow is snow, and any bit of it could be tricky for travelers. So looking into Saturday and Sunday, the storm will gradually move off the coast, but we may see additional snowfall across the Midwest and Northeast. While the exact details of where the snow will fall and how much is still uncertain, we do know that it could impact travel, so we'll need to keep an eye on that. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any updates as this storm progresses. As we get into next week, things are going to get a little tricky with the forecast. The GFS model is indicating the possibility of another large storm system forming around the second weekend of February. However, it's still really early to say exactly what that will look like, so we'll have to wait and see. Forecasting this far out is always challenging, so keep that in mind. In terms of rainfall, this storm is going to bring quite a bit of it, especially in Oklahoma and Texas, where we're expecting between 2 to 5 inches of rain. This could definitely lead to some flash flooding, particularly in southeast Oklahoma, where we could see isolated spots with 5 to 7 inches of rain by the time the storm is done. Areas in the Ohio Valley and Dixie Alley will also get some rain with 1 to 3 inches in many places. This is actually a good thing for drought conditions, but keep in mind that all this rain coming in such a short period of time could still cause some issues, especially in Texas and Oklahoma. Now let's talk about the risk for severe weather. On Wednesday, the risk is relatively low, but there's still a chance for a few isolated severe storms south of Dallas and west of Houston. We could see damaging winds and hail, but the tornado risk looks pretty minimal right now. Thursday, however, could be a much more active day for severe weather. We'll be watching closely as a mesoscale convective system moves across southeast Texas, bringing thunderstorms with damaging winds and hail. If any supercells form ahead of the main line, the tornado risk could increase. So Thursday is definitely the day to be extra weather aware, particularly in southeast Texas, Louisiana, and Dixie Alley. The risk will move eastward later in the evening and into Friday morning, but by then, the severe weather threat should be much lower. If we go live during the storm, you'll be notified if you're subscribed with notifications on, so don't forget to hit that bell icon. Over in the Northeast, snow is going to be a big story tonight and tomorrow. We're looking at widespread snowfall ranging from a coating to 3 inches in many areas, with New England's higher elevations getting 2 to 5 inches of snow. In upstate New York, we're looking at a bullseye area where snowfall could range from 4 to 8 inches, and a few locations might even pick up close to a foot of snow. Winter storm warnings are in effect for some of these areas, so be sure to prepare for winter weather if you're in these zones. Looking further ahead, this is the GFS ensemble model showing the chances for seeing more than 1 inch of snow through February 8th. Right now, most of the country has low chances, except for the northern plains in the Northeast, where the chances are a bit higher. Keep in mind that forecasting snow this far in advance can be really hit or miss. So take this with a grain of salt. I do expect we'll see some snow across the Midwest and Northeast around Friday or Saturday, but it won't be a huge amount. Finally, let's talk about the temperatures. For much of the country, we're looking at above average temperatures, especially for the eastern part of the U.S., from the East Coast to Texas and the Gulf Coast. We're looking at temps 10 to 15 degrees above average on Thursday and Friday. By the weekend, warmer air will push further north, and North Texas could see temperatures in the low 70s by Sunday. But by Monday and Tuesday, cold air will start moving in from the Rockies, dipping into the northern plains. Don't worry, though, this isn't expected to be an Arctic blast. It will likely fizzle out as we move into the middle of next week. So no need to worry about any major cold fronts just yet, but it's still something to watch for. Thanks so much for watching today. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next update.